The Treasurer walks into Parliament ready to defend a budget, but leaves behind a political firestorm no one saw coming. Numbers are thrown like weapons. Debt, taxes, inflation, all exploding in the same speech. And then the real accusation drops. Australia isn't being governed, it's being abandoned. But when the camera zooms in on the details, nothing adds up the way they said it would. Every answer turns into deflection. Every question turns into chaos. And suddenly, what looked like a budget debate turns into something much bigger. Watch how one exchange exposes everything.
Last night, one of the most shameless performances in all budget history. No shame at admitting that our young people face budget deficits until way into the next decade. No shame that gross debt will reach $1 million next year. I repeat, $1 million. Go and tell young people that. No wonder there were no revenue projections for the next 10 years. This mob will raise even more taxes. $77 billion net tax increases next year. No shame about telling us that inflation could reach 7%, but then they have the gall to say they will help young people into houses. How the hell did they get houses with interest rates climbing to 10%? I have said before that Gough Whitlam, one of Labor's heroes, and certainly compared to this lot, a real hero. He was turfed out in a landslide defeat in 1975 because he was economically incompetent. But revenues were then 24.5% of GDP. Last night, Chalmers had no shame in announcing that the Albanese government's revenues would be 27% of GDP, and no shame in saying that there would be higher taxes over the medium term. There is nothing in this for hard-working and productive Australians, nothing. The handouts continue to renewable energy when anyone with a modicum of common sense would say scrap net zero, get out of Paris and do what this country did for years until it was overtaken by the global warming climate change hoax. Use our plentiful natural resources to deliver the kind of wealth to individuals and businesses that once used to be taken for granted, and then say emphatically that we will decide who comes to this country and no one is welcome to bring the problems they left behind into our once stable and united world. The polls say that the Albanese-Chalmers farce is supported by barely 30% of the voters. That is, 70% don't want them. And last night proved why they don't want them. One Nation will take Australia back to the majority of Australians. One Nation will educate Australians as if we do care about the next generation. That we do care about the next generation. This generation has to live within its means. The age of bribing voters has to end. The age of irresponsible spending has to end. In fact, the age of having no guts to tell Australians the true story of the mess that Labor is leaving this country must end. A government that can't tell the voters the truth does not deserve to be in government. And that brings me to the seat of Farrer.
What do you think about this political exchange? Drop your opinion in the comments and join the debate. Do you agree with the claims, or is this being taken too far?
You know, they said One Nation was a party of grievance, a party of protest, a party that would always be on the fringe. They said we were racist, illegitimate and divisive. They said we might get this odd Senate seat, but never win a seat in the House of Representatives. But then something happened in South Australia a few weeks ago. The state's political landscape was reshaped by a One Nation earthquake. We won as many seats as the Liberals and smashed their primary vote. We achieved massive swings in safe Labor seats and made them marginal. We demonstrated we could convert our surge in the polls into votes. They panicked, then suddenly realised One Nation was a real chance in the Farrer by-election and did everything they could to stop us. They spent a fortune, they created attack websites and social media accounts. They put up billboards all over the electorate. They bullied our volunteers. They ran dozens of hit pieces in the media, and there was a lot of cheap mud raking. Well, the people of Farrer have sent a loud, strong message. I suspect it will fall on a lot of deaf ears. I want to congratulate David Farley on his stunning win in Farrer, and I'm pleased to acknowledge his presence in the Senate chamber today. David is a native Narrandera in the heart of the Murrumbidgee irrigation area, and David is going to be most welcome to work with the team, and I congratulate David on his win.
What we just heard was not a normal budget debate. It was a full political attack dressed as economic criticism. From the very beginning, the Treasurer is framed as completely disconnected, with the Speaker building a picture of a government that has lost touch with ordinary Australians and has no understanding of what people are actually going through in their daily lives. And then the tone escalates fast. The budget is not just criticized, it is portrayed as a complete national failure. Massive debt figures are thrown out, inflation warnings are highlighted, and tax increases are framed as if they are being deliberately hidden from the public. The argument is not just that the numbers are bad, but that there is no shame in presenting them, which is designed to intensify anger rather than simply inform. The key emotional shift happens when housing is brought into the discussion. The claim that young Australians are being promised home ownership while interest rates are rising is used to paint the government as completely out of reality. It's not just policy disagreement anymore, it becomes a narrative of betrayal between government and citizens. From there, the speech moves into ideology. Renewable energy policy, net zero, immigration, and national identity are all bundled together into one broader message: that Australia is being mismanaged and reshaped without consent from the majority. This is where the rhetoric becomes the strongest, framing the situation as a country losing control over its own direction. Then comes the political positioning. The Speaker shifts from criticism to self-justification, arguing that the system is broken and that alternative political movements were ignored, mocked, and underestimated. The message is clear. The establishment dismissed them, but public support is shifting. Finally, the conclusion is pure political escalation. It moves from budget criticism to a wider claim that the current government has lost legitimacy in the eyes of voters, and that change is already happening through electoral results and public backlash. And that is the real purpose of this entire exchange. Not just to debate a budget, but to frame a bigger question. Is this just policy disagreement, or is it a government losing control of public trust?